Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of ACK and Friends, um, where we bring to you some of the best of Indian kids' literature. Amar Chitra Katha has been telling stories from India to children for about 53 years now. India has always had a lot of great literature to offer, and a big part of that are the stories that were solely written for children. Today, there are a lot of wonderful authors who are writing joyful and important stories. We hope to give you a sneak peek into this delightful world of Indian kids' literature. Today, we have with us Shachii Manik, who loves to play with words, and that's how she came up. With her impressive body of words. Over the years, she has made up jokes, puzzles, limericks, rhymes, and stories for kids. And we are very excited to have her here talking about her book, Magic Potion. So please welcome Shachii Manik. Hi, Shachii.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi, Sanjana.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and being a part of ACK and Friends. We are very excited to talk to you about your all of what you've been working on and what you've done. And so I want to start with everybody has, before they become a writer, they've been, and while I was reading about you, I realized that you've done an MBA and then you ventured into writing for children. So tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer.
Sure. So I'm an accidental author, if I could say that. I never dreamed of being one, but I've done my engineering, electronics engineering, and then I did my MBA, and I got a run-of-the-mill job in the software industry, which was really big at that time. And then something, I guess, destiny and motherhood made me quit all that. And I was staying at home for some time, and I started dabbling in various things like children's activities. And being around children, they just tend to spark things in your brains. And the husband that I have, he's my partner in rhyme, like I like to call him. And both of us would, just make up stories for the kids and things. And that's how I got, really serious about doing it. And I thought I'd stick to that then. That's how I got
That's
here.
nice. Yeah, and so I was reading one of your interviews, and what came across was this. You had mentioned about how important it is to be silly and how it is important to like embrace the silliness. And so, what I basically wanted to ask you was that how important do you think it is for a children's author to let go of some inhibitions and embrace the silliness, and how much silliness plays into your daily life?
Oh, I think that's my middle name. But I think we tend to lose the importance of humor. When a child goes to school, suddenly everybody around them is so serious that, oh, you're at school now and you have to
Yeah.
study, and somewhere down the line they just lose the fun.
Yeah.
I mean, one needs to have fun while learning, and if you look at the world through a 3-year-old's eyes, it's a completely different,
Yeah,
different world.
absolutely.
A 3-year-old will not think twice before saying, "Oh, look at that man! He's got a funny nose," or "Look at that lady. She's," they don't have any inhibition.
Yeah. Are we? I think Shachi is having some difficulties, so we'll just give her a moment. But yeah, but as Shachi was saying, there's a lot of like silliness that plays into her daily life, and when she's talking about like through her thing. Yeah, you
Yeah, sorry.
dropped out for a minute. Yeah, go ahead. Huh, you were
So
telling us about. We were talking about
yeah, so
silliness.
yeah. And I said that if you look at the world through a 3 or 5-year-old's eyes, I mean, it's such a different place. It's so much fun. And, kids tend to find joy in the littlest of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes going to school kind of inhibits that, and we need to realize that if we want them to learn, if we want them to have fun while learning, we have to allow them to be silly, to joke around, be like them. That's when they'll end up listening to what you have to say to them. So
Yeah.
I feel it's
That's
very
so.
important to have humor around us.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question actually, because you've written a lot of like puzzle books and joke books for kids, and what I wanted to know is how do you find this sweet spot? How do you decide what would be funny to your 7-year old or an 8-year old? How do you get that?
Yeah. So I've been lucky to be involved in a lot of children's activities. I used to work at an activity center. So I used to go and listen, overhear what the kids are saying amongst themselves while they're, just with the kids rather than with adults, because they, tend to want to please the adults and talk like the adults want them
Hmm.
to. But when it's just
Yeah.
the kids, you go and just, stand, be the fly on the wall there. And then that's when you really get the pulse of, what a 7-year old is actually thinking and enjoying talking about. And now I
Correct.
work at a school, so I love the lunch breaks when I just wander around and listen to what the kids are saying and talking about. So that helps a lot, being um, in
Around
tune with
kids.
what they, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I have two of
All
my
right.
own who
Huh.
they're 15 and 13 now, but they think that they've grown up, but I'm still 7 or 5. So, but
Oh, all right. So, if for everybody who's watching, if you have any questions for Shachii, please ask them, and we shall insert them into the interview. She would be very happy to answer them. And so, while everybody is still getting around to asking, what another thing that you've written extensively on is non-fiction for children. There's a series that you have called Inside India, and you've written about amazing historical places, fascinating food, and these are all topics that probably you have books for adults for them, because they are non-fiction books and things for adults as well. So how do you decide what would be too dry for a child, or how to make it fun, how to make like history fun? So how do you do that while writing? Did Shachi seems to have. Hi,
I'm sorry, I think
did you
I
get my
lost you
question?
there.
Okay, I will repeat my question. So I was talking about your nonfiction series called Inside India,
Yeah.
and how there are some of these like amazing historical places and fascinating food. These are all also topics that probably an adult would pick up and read. So how do you find that line where? How do you find what would be too dry for a child, and how to make history interesting for them?
So, that's a very good question. So first of all, I look at we are focusing on a lot of things to do with India,
Okay.
and a lot of the urban kids these days, they are kind of wanting to look at things that are abroad rather than going back into their Indian roots.
Correct.
So one thing we want to do via this series is bring that pride for India back among the kids.
Hmm.
So we've tried to find these very unusual things around the country, that any a particular child living in one particular city in India might not be able to have an overview of what's happening in the other parts of the country. So we tried to bring little bits of information from all over the country and put it into little activities for them. So while they're doing an activity or a puzzle, there is a little bit of information that they read about what we're trying to talk about. So it could be a strange festival that we came across where the people worship dogs, during that festival.
Hmm.
So we kind of spun a little story around that. And while we were doing that activity, you just put in a little bit of information about that festival. So now if it piques the interest of a child, they would obviously go and look it up or ask their parents or something.
Yeah.
So we try to bring in tidbits of information from all over the country
Okay.
and make it interesting for them.
All right. Okay, great. So at this point, we have a couple of questions, or I can see one or so. I'm gonna. So Kritika Nair asks if we can get. No. Yeah. So Kritika Nair asks, what are some of the funniest conversations that you've witnessed between children?
Oh, I think there's so many to pick one. I know there was a 3 and a 5-year-old fighting one day. Two boys, and they're like, they looked so angry. And one of them said, "You're a Satsuma orange," and the other one says, "Well, then you're a mandarin." And I'm like, okay, I like these kind of fights. They just learned about different kinds of oranges, and they were calling each
Yeah.
other those names. I mean, that's one I really remember.
Hmm.
And then there was one where there were two brothers. One of them is very skinny and scrawny, um, and he came out wearing, like a green mask one and said, "मैं Hulk हूँ." So his older brother says, "अरे तू Hulk नहीं, तू हल्का है." So
Oh.
that's where the jokes come from. It's just, these funny
Yeah,
ways
listening
that.
to all right. So
Hmm.
actually, somebody has made an interesting point, which brings a question. So Rohit Sharma says that well, I would like to differ stories, and so that they aren't categorized into adults and kids. Because when we talk about comics and other books, even adults enjoy humor, which is true. Adults enjoy. So my question here is, how important do you think it is for adults to be reading kids literature?
I think it is imperative that all adults read books for children because it keeps the child alive in them. And again, like he rightly said, there is no book for children, especially because one thing I've realized that when you try to write for specifically for an audience that's below a certain age, it's not necessary that you use words that you feel they may be familiar with. I mean, just
Hmm.
put your words down there, even if they may be large words or words they may have never come across. But, like, I don't think you ever need to write down to children or talk down to them,
Yeah.
uh, because they're ready to absorb everything that you give them. They're like sponges.
Hmm.
So I agree. There should not be any categorization. I don't see myself not picking up a book because it's in the children's section or the
Correct.
other way
Yeah, yeah,
around.
I
So
absolutely agree. I think I read a lot more children's literature than I did when I was a kid. So,
yeah,
uh, and now moving closer to Magic Potion, the book is in verse,
yeah,
and poetry in particular is a bit tricky to get right because a lot. So how do you in the sense, what is your favorite? Like, is there something that inspires you when it comes to rhyme? Is there uh, uh, some some famous poets that you really follow? And yeah, why? How did you
yeah,
pick line? Because you also write limericks and a lot of rhymes. So
yeah. So um, to pick a few authors that kind of influenced me were Dr. Seuss, first of all.
yeah,
I think he's brilliant, and he just has got the meter and the rhyme and everything just perfectly. And the other one is Julia Donaldson, who has inspired me a lot. And again, I got exposed to all these books because of my kids. Um, and what I felt was that I enjoyed reading a story um, out loud more when it was in rhyme or when it had a certain pattern. And I saw the response from the children that I would read to, not only my own kids, but a lot of friends' kids and others, that they
yeah,
would enjoy, that rhyming element a lot better than if it's just plain prose.
correct. Okay.
And that kind of caught my interest. Now, if somebody asks me to write about anything, the first thing that comes to me is like, oh, what's going to rhyme, you know?
All right. So tell us a little bit more about Magic Potion in particular and how that came to be. Because, yeah, how did that story come to
Yeah.
life?
Okay, so that's a funny thing. Like I said, my husband and I, both of us, have written this together.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
um, we had gone on a trip to Goa, and we were just hanging around at the beach, at the pool, and things. And our kids kept saying, "Oh, tell us another story, and tell us another story, and tell us another story." So this is one story that we came up with right, then and there during that trip, and we kept developing on it, and our kids also helped. It's like, oh, what do you think should happen next? What do you think should happen next? So they would also help and put elements into this, and we just created the plot first, and then we decided to put it in this rhyming format, and it got so interesting um, that and we were not sure where it was going, right? It was just some kind of a
Yeah.
rhyming story that we had written, and we shared it with a few friends, and then one of them came up and said, oh, I'd love to draw pictures for this book, let's convert it into a book and things. So we did try to approach a few publishers, but everybody says, oh, if you have a body of work already, then we'll help you out and stuff.
Hmm.
Then we thought, let's give it a shot, self-publishing. Never thought about it before, never knew what it would be like. So did a lot of research, figured out how things work, and then went into actually doing the production of the book, where
Hmm.
Vandana Pradhan, she's the illustrator. She's
Correct.
actually hand painted all the illustrations in watercolor,
Hmm.
and and then she also kept pushing us along that no, we have to publish this, we have to publish it.
But
So
that
yeah,
brings me, yeah, because that brings me to, it's interesting that you brought up self-publishing because you worked with publishers and you've self-published this book. And so, how do you, how do you, how is it different, and what advice would you give someone who's looking to self-publish, and like, should they have the confidence to do it? How has been your experience self-publishing?
so it's good and bad both. There are obviously pros and cons. I started out knowing absolutely nothing about the publishing business. At that point of time, I didn't even have any contacts with publishers or anything. So I actually just did some research on how one goes about even getting an ISBN, and
Hmm.
what happens then. How do you register things, copyrights, this and that? But it's a very simple process, really. You have to apply for an ISBN, and obviously you have to find a printer and a designer who's going to create the entire book for you.
Correct.
Um, the most challenging part, of course, is the distribution, getting it to the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah.
That is the most challenging part. And when we did this about 5 years ago, it was even more challenging than it is now. Now I know that there are various platforms. You can even sell easily via Flipkart, Amazon,
Correct.
um, and things like that yourself. So it's a great process if you have the time and the money to invest in it. Um, I mean, you should definitely go for self-publishing if you have, the drive. If you're able to distribute the books, if you're able to,
Correct.
put them out in the market in some way.
All right.
If not, then I'd say if your strength is writing, if your strength is, that, then stick to writing. Find publishers who can do the rest of the job for you.
All right. Great.
So,
Okay, that's very helpful. So, would you like to read a little bit from Magic Potion? Because I know it's a great
definitely,
fun. Yeah,
of
it's
course,
fun to
I
hear.
love reading. Yeah, so this is the magic potion, and as it says, it's by Gaurav and Shachii Manik. So it's not just me, but my husband Gaurav, who's my partner in rhyme. And I'm going to read a few pages, but uh, let's see what happens. Okay, this is a story about obviously the magic potion and what happens with the magic potion. So here goes. There was a dark forest in North Nixland of old, an enchanted home to strange creatures, I'm told. In an old grey cottage by the murky lake lived three witches, an owl, and a snake. cauldrons and potions and black pointy hats, toadstools and spiders and wings of some bats. Magic and broomsticks were part of their day. Helga and Thelma and Wilma were they. So that's three witches, Helga and Thelma and Wilma. Can you tell which one is which? Sorry, just a joke. Um, One night, the king's stable boy happened to be lost in the forest. And what did he see? A strange little hut in need of repair. He peeked in and saw a witch on a chair. A second witch appeared with a wand and a broom. With a flick of her wrist, it cleaned up the room. The table was set by witch number 3 as the boy heard a shriek from a nearby tree. I get scared every time I read this. Now, where is their food? The stable boy wondered as the dark sky flashed and loudly thundered. Helga had a bottle with food on its label. She poured a few drops in the center of the table. Roasted chicken, potatoes, some rosemary bread. One by one, the witches wishfully said. Dinner plates appeared with the requested treat. All of the food looked so yummy to eat. The witches were enjoying their conjured up meal while the boy was devising a dubious deal. He tugged at his sleeve and he tore off a scrap. Then he knocked on the door with a tap, tap, tap. Wilma felt some pity and let the boy in. He's cold, he's hungry, and so very thin. Thelma inquired, Now what brings you here? I'm lost, he said, shedding a crocodile tear. What will you eat, oh you poor fellow? Some chicken, some bread, or would you like some jello? The boy replied, hiding his true intent. Only water and bread, please, and I'm content. A sparkle, a shimmer, and then it was done. A goblet appeared and a whole wheat bun. He ate hungrily and let out a yawn. Then asked politely if he could stay until dawn. The trio agreed. Let us make you a bed. Oh, please, I'll sleep on the floor instead. What a simpleton, thought they, and soon were asleep. No sounds from their rooms, not even a peep. When the night owls hooted a to-wit to-woo, the stable boy arose. Now what was he up to? While the witches slept soundly as soundly can be, the boy stole the potion and decided to flee. Oh my goodness, he's stealing the potion. Look from their cabinet and he's taking it away. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? He sped through the forest without any fright and made it to the village by the end of the night. The witches awoke to find no guest on the floor. He has stolen the potion! Wilma let out a roar. The boy rushed to his hut beside the stable and hurriedly poured a drop on the table. I want turkey and salad along with some wine and a big chunk of chicken roasted with thyme. A cavalry could have had the meal that appeared. Chocolate cake with icing and make it two-tiered. He ate some. He paused. Then he wished for some more. The stable boy was eating a meal meant for 4. The food-induced slumber he could not resist. Then he woke with a smile and he made a new list. Cakes, Turkish delights was his latest request. Could he eat all this? Only a third of it at best. But what's happening? Look, what's happening here? The servings were bigger and bigger each time. The grapes and the raisins were as big as a lime. Apples and oranges were large as a pumpkin. The boy had changed to a king from a bumpkin. Suddenly, everything around him was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What do you think is happening? Many wishes and dishes he had had today. He loosened his belt and called it a day. He slept on his bed. It's bigger than before. And the pillow has doubled in size, I'm sure. What do you think is happening? Do you want to know more, Sanjana? Do we have time for more, or should I stop here?
You can read it. You can read two more pages. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Are you excited to know what's happening? He awoke the next morning early and bright. His eyes grew wide and he screamed out in fright. It was a large room with a four-poster bed. Where am I? What place is this? He cried out in dread. The table looked familiar and so did the floor. Was that not his horse scraper next to the door? Everything was his own, which made him realize it was his own home, only multiplied in size. What do you think is happening? Can anybody guess what's happening? Do we have any people commenting on what could be happening?
Okay, if anybody knows what could be happening, please guess, and we shall maybe confirm whether you're right while
They
we are
can,
waiting. Yeah.
yeah.
So while we're waiting for to see if anybody guesses right, um, we have someone who's asked a question about rhyme,
Mhm.
and so Aparna says that when it's well done, readers aren't aware of the fact that they're reading a book in verse. So how much revision is involved in your process when you're writing rhyme?
Oh, a lot, a lot. It is very, very difficult to get rhyme right. First of all, is the words obviously that have to rhyme properly, and then it's the meter. How you're going to read it, because it
Yeah,
has to fit in that kind of the rhythm that you're going to read it in. So
correct.
sometimes you have to juggle a few words, and there's always a lot of revision involved.
So does it involve a lot of reading aloud? Are you
Yes,
all forever reading your rhyme back
yeah,
aloud?
yes, yes, yes.
All
And
right.
thankfully, I have two in-house editors. My kids are the best critics in the world, so they always tell me that, oh, this is not working. So that helps a lot.
So Mahima Krishna says that too much magic potion used or the witches are playing a trick.
Aha, Mahima, you're on the right track. Are they going to let the thief get away with the potion?
Well, well, well. You all will have to read it to know.
Yeah.
All right. We have a couple of more questions. And yeah, we have a couple of more questions. So Niranjana asks, how do you balance fantastic elements in fiction and similarity to the real world
Do you really need to?
in a
Hmm.
children's book?
Do you really need to? I mean, um, I guess I don't really pay much attention to that kind of a balance. If you ask me honestly, um, I think when I'm writing, it's just if I know that I'm writing something that's fictional, then that's like no holds barred there. I don't see why you need to have anything to do with the real world when you're writing fiction. But when you're writing non-fiction, yes, you have to be very careful and keep it real.
Correct. Yeah.
So
All right. Then we have Aditi Shah saying, what is your favorite genre, facts or fantasy? And according to you, what is more fun, numbers or alphabets?
ooh, that's a tough one, Aditi. You're a cheeky one. Um, Favorites. Um, um, Words or numbers is, I think, easy to answer. I'd pick words because
Hmm.
words can do a lot. I know people will disagree. They'll say numbers can do so much, but so can words.
Yeah,
And
so
I'm on
can
the word
words.
side, yes.
Yes, yes, completely.
Fantasy or fact?
Yeah,
Um,
fantasy or fact.
well, very thin line, very, very thin line. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
have a favorite there. I'll be honest.
All right. We have one more question, and that is from Kalpita Gavade, who says how writing for humorous books is different from other genre books. Like, how is it different? Do you have to put on a separate thinking hat for humorous books?
I think I have to put on a separate thinking hat for other books
Ha. Okay.
because humor comes naturally. Yeah, I try to find the funny in everything that's around us. So
Okay.
it is difficult. It is difficult to write humor because what's funny for you may be absolutely not funny for somebody else reading. So that's a
Correct.
real gamble there. Even with the joke books, it was a real gamble. And I'm sure there's 50% people who pick it up and say, oh, this is rubbish. I don't like these jokes. But there are the other 50% who say, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
So I think when you are trying to write, you just have to be true to yourself and write what you feel. There's always going to be critics out there. Some people will like it, some people won't. So, yeah.
All right. So we have somebody who has written. It's not exactly a question. It's just a very nice comment saying that I'm a grandma and I've read this before to my grandchildren, but have never enjoyed it as much as today. It took me away to my wonderful childhood. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Rashmi, for that comment. Thank you.
thank you. And I hope you keep enjoying reading this.
So while we give everybody else a chance to ask one or more question, there are 4 questions that I ask everybody who comes on. So I'm going to quickly ask you those. And so you just have to give me very quick answers. They are very fast answers, okay? All right. So what was the last Indian children's book that you loved, that you read and loved?
Okay. The last one that I read and really loved was the Bhagavad Gita for Children by Rupa Pai.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I really did because she has written it it's so simple for anybody
Correct.
to pick up and read. So yeah, that's my quick answer for you.
All right. Okay. All right. So if you had to describe yourself as a genre of literature, what would you pick? Is this an easy one after we've
Yeah, humor.
humor? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
And okay. And so one fictional character you would like to befriend or have a nice long chat with.
Ooh. Considering it's 31st of July today, I'd say Luna Lovegood
Ooh.
from the Harry Potter series. I find her
Yeah, that
very
would be a
intriguing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a great conversation to have. Absolutely. Okay, and my last question is, so as a children's author, I know that there are a lot of, like, the world doesn't look at the profession very seriously. And so, what is some of the most common things that people have said to you, or the strangest reaction you got when you tell people that I write for children as a living?
Yeah, so they're like, oh, like textbooks, like things for school. Well, no. you
No.
know, and some people just completely ignore it. Oh, I write books for children. It's like, yeah, whatever. Okay. And what do you do for a living? You know?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's great. All right, I think this brings us to the end of, yeah, there are no other questions, am I right? Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Shachii. This has been great and this has been good fun. Thank you so much. And thank you for
Thank
that
you.
great reading. We loved all the voices. That was super fun. And yeah, we hope there's a lot of humor that continues to surround you. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
us on Easy
Sanjana.
Game
Thank
Friends.
you, ACK. Thanks to the whole team for having me over. It's great fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right,
Bye.
see you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody, for joining and watching. And yeah, see you next week at the same time with a brand new author. Goodbye. Have a great weekend.